Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here, coming at you with a Dino Fury, Cosmic Fury related video today. Big surprise, talking about who is the 6th Ranger for Cosmic Fury. Is it Zayto or is it Aiyon? Shout out to Sniper Jacob on Twitter for giving me this video idea. You know, this is a topic I've seen around. I didn't necessarily think about doing a video on it, but when he brought it up, I thought, you know, it could be interesting to discuss. I do want to preface this by saying that, you know, unless they outright come out and give some sort of classification, I don't necessarily know if we'll know for sure, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. This is one of the debates I see around Toku Twitter, Toku Facebook. Facebook, is that even a thing anymore? But just Toku fandom in general is the debate of who's the 6th Ranger, who's the secondary rider. And obviously there's some cases where they sort of acknowledge it with stuff like the Gokai Cellular, but at the same time, it just doesn't matter. You know, as long as you enjoy it, it's up to you. You know, it doesn't matter. Like, for example, SPD, Deca Ranger, Omega Ranger / Deca Break is, I believe, technically the 6th Ranger because he literally has a number 6 on him, whereas Shadow's more of a Mentor Ranger. But technically speaking, Shadow is the 6th Ranger to show up. And if there's someone out there that likes to consider Shadow Ranger as the 6th Ranger and Omega as the 7th, that doesn't impact my enjoyment. So this video is not here to tell what's right or wrong or to cause a needlessly negative debate. It's more of a fun thought exercise because as someone who likes nerd things, it is fun to think about things like this. And this is an interesting situation as you have the Core 5 Dino Fury team with the Gold Ranger appearing as obviously the classic 6th Ranger. But now as we're switching over to Cosmic Fury, we have a new Red Ranger and then the old Red Ranger has become something else. He spent 5 years in hell and he's come home with one goal, to stop Lord Zed. But his old approach wasn't enough. It is interesting and unprecedented, and some of the promo art and the vibes almost make it seem like Aiyon's part of the Core 5 now. So is he part of that Core 5 team, and do we have this unique color lineup now of red, green, blue, black, and gold with a champagne-colored 6th Ranger? I mean, I honestly don't know. I mean, why make this video? I think it's interesting to think about it in terms of Ranger history and what you want to view it as. I think it's interesting, too, just to note, like, in terms of how the Dino Fury powers were created. You know, they were all created at the same time. Like, obviously in the context of the show, Gold is the 6th Ranger. He shows up in a classic 6th Ranger tradition, everything about it. You know, the way he appears in the timing of the show and his different weapon and stuff. But he was created at the same time, as like just this Core 6 group of Rangers was created at the same time. So it is weird. I'm almost more curious about, like, if he was just part of that original Core 6, why is his Morpher different? Obviously, we know why his Morpher is different in the context of the franchise and Sentai, but that's like the mythology stuff I like explained, not in a like, you have to explain it or you don't care, blah, blah, blah. But just in a, it's interesting when they try to explain stuff that has like meta implications. Like there's a meta reason for it, but it's cool when they come up with an in-universe reason for it. It's just interesting to me, the ghosts. I think that's interesting in general, because you could kind of view it like that. That's the reason I bring it up, is that it's more like a core group of 6. So there really isn't a technical 6th Ranger in a traditional sense, made as a special new trump card or an evil ranger or something that was created after the fact for a special reason, like the White Blaster Beetleborg. You can kind of just think of it as a core 6, and this is just a continuation of that. You know, or MMPR, I think MMPR and Zeo bring up some interesting examples in terms of viewing it in a similar way, where obviously the Red and White Rangers of MMPR kind of mirror this in a bunch of different ways, where you're getting a Ranger now becoming this White Ranger, which is kind of similar to Zayto's, even though it's a champagne color, and then you have the Red Ranger now on the team, and you kind of almost have this two-leader situation, where obviously Tommy was told he was the leader because they were transitioning Jason out because of the behind-the-scenes stuff. And sometimes when discussing this, it's hard to separate the behind-the-scenes stuff from, you know, the actual context of the show, because the original team did operate together for a little while in the universe before the Stone Canyon trio came in. And they said Tommy was the leader, but because of the weird footage, it felt more like there was just two leaders, like a High Command A and High Command B. And that's kind of the way maybe it'll be now, because a lot of people are having trouble with the idea of, is Zayto going to get a demotion because of Amelia? I certainly think that they're going to push Amelia as the leader and say she's the new leader, but in my opinion, the way I feel about it, especially with him getting a name like Zenith, I don't think he's going to become second in command or lower. I think he's going to be something different. I think that there's probably going to be scenes where they're out in the field and they're going to like look to Zayto and he's going to be like, no, Amelia's the leader now. But not because he's like lower now. I think it's because he's higher and he's in a different role. Kind of like, you know, when Sky got promoted. Sky got promoted and then I got promoted and our mentor was a dog. It's kind of the way I see it. Like when Sky became commander and became the Deca Ranger and Bridge became Red Ranger. Now they're both different types of leaders. So I think that's going to be a different type of dynamic. But it creates these interesting parallels to MMPR for that reason. Also some parallels to Zeo, where you have the situation where Tommy was the Sixth Ranger and Jason was part of the core group, and then you flop that. And if you count Zeno, that's like his name with Zenith and Zayto in there. If you count Zayto as the Sixth Ranger, you have the situation where Aiyon was once the Sixth Ranger and now he's part of the core group, and then Zayto is now the Sixth Ranger. I think it brings up stuff especially like that from MMPR when the status quo changes were different. Since this is pseudo-similar to that, since we're continuing on to a third season and we're getting palette or, color palette changes. For me though, the biggest thing I think about with MMPR in terms of how I was thinking about this, because to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really thinking about this too much, like in terms of like who's the Sixth Ranger. I guess I was sort of still thinking about Aiyon as the Sixth Ranger because that's the way it is, but the more I thought about it, because we're doing this differently, I was more so thinking about it in terms of the way my thinking of MMPR changed. Whereas obviously, you have Green and then White Ranger replacing him as the Sixth Ranger. But those core 6 were active for so long together, the original 5 plus the White Ranger through seasons 2 and 3 plus the movie, that I kind of stopped thinking about them as the 5 Rangers and the 6 Ranger, and I just started to think of them as a core 6. And that's kind of the way I'm seeing the Cosmic Fury team right now, is the roles I think are going to be changed. In my opinion, I feel like Amelia is going to feel like the Red Ranger, but Zayto is going to feel like something different. But I still feel like they're going to be this core 6 team, and that's the feeling I'm going to get. I'm going to get a feeling similar to MMPR, where it just feels like this core 6 where the roles slightly changed. Like, admittedly, when I look at the original core 6 when Tommy was Green versus White, there is a difference in the way I view the dynamic, where I saw Tommy as more as a 6th Special Ranger, and then I did see Tommy as the leader. And I think it'll be similar to that with Cosmic Fury, where I'm still going to just view them as this core 6, but their roles have just changed. But I'm not going to so much think about it as Zayto is the 6th Ranger or Aiyon is the 6th Ranger. I'm going to view it as, here's the core 6, but now their roles are different. Just like the roles of Tommy and Jason were different going from MMPR Team 1.0 to MMPR Team 2.0. I think in one way, it'd be cool to think about Zayto as the 6th Ranger because that's something kind of different, where you have the Red Ranger becoming this different color and then becoming the 6th Ranger. But on the other hand, I also like the idea of us getting outside of these boxes of having to categorize everything. Again, on a nerdy level, for me, it's fun to sometimes think about, like, who do I think is the 6th Ranger or the secondary rider, or is this a 7th Ranger? Is this an auxiliary ranger? But at the same time, I like the idea of coming up with new categories and new ways of thinking. Like, the way I'm viewing it and hoping is that Zayto just feels like something different. I think he's still going to feel like part of the core team, and I don't think we're going to lose that dynamic, but I think he might be like a sort of semi-new category altogether. That's a little bit of all categories. A little bit of 6th Ranger, a little bit of a Special Ranger that is kind of in an uncategorizable category right now. A little bit of sort of, Shadow Ranger, Decker Ranger feel, where he's still a leader role, just in a higher up, different capacity. I think it's going to be something like that. At least that's the way I'm feeling. I am curious though, what do you guys think? Are you thinking about Aiyon still as the 6th, or do you see him as part of the core group now, and you see Zayto as the Zenith Ranger? We'll have to see as it evolves. Again, I just have my feelings right now where I'm viewing it more like MMPR, where it's just now a core 6 group of Rangers where the roles are just changing a little bit. Interesting to see if my thoughts change when the show happens, and if they in any way sort of acknowledge it in a different way. Because they have been acknowledging certain things now, like they've been acknowledging like, oh yeah, Amelia's red, she's going to be the new leader, the new team leader. But I'm wondering if they're going to say like, oh yeah, Zayto's totally the new 6th Ranger, But let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.